So once we decide that, yes, this is something that I need to change, and there is something that I need to do about striking a balance between my responses and reactions. Okay, and that is when we want to discuss how to strike a balance. Okay, so we spoke about a lot of things till now. We spoke about different parenting styles, different parameters, different things that cause or shape your parenting practices and everything. So now I'm going to take you to a tour of how you can adapt to practice certain positiveness in terms of responding with your children. So it is nothing but your response, how you react and how you respond to your children in these critical areas, which is authoritative parenting style. Is it talks very much about all these things. There is no set rule or set formula to be a perfect parent as such. Please take it in mind that there is nothing something there is no such thing called as a perfect parent. But you can certainly try and apply certain techniques in terms of getting better responses from your children. Okay, so what gives you that? Which style gives you that? And the answer is authoritative style. Why? Because it talks a lot about these four things that you're seeing on the screen. It talks a lot about setting limits, providing a clear structure and clarity about rules and behaviors that are okay, not okay, acceptable or not acceptable. So this is very significant in terms of children with special needs as well. Many times what happens is that the behaviors that they exhibit, the negative behaviors that they exhibit, let's say, they are negative, they are called negative or challenging because they are socially inappropriate behaviors many of the times. And well, for it to be socially appropriate, the children with special needs, they themselves are not able to form that connection, and that is why these behaviors are happening. Am I not right? So what happens over here is when we provide clear structure by visuals, and I'm going to come to it later on in very much detail, by visuals, by a lot of techniques, applying a lot of techniques that are specifically very effective with the children with special needs. So considering their own strengths and needs and the particular nature of their disability, if we consider the strengths of the disability as well, and we are able to create kind of visuals. For example, children with ADHD, so they are typically poor in terms of organizational skills, or they are high in terms of making, the risk-taking behaviors, because they cannot really form the relation between that logical relation between the cause and the effect. So if we are able to see that, and if we are able to create a lot of structure in terms of how how the child can be organized in terms of a visual, then the child will, it is less likely that the child will show negative behaviors. So I will talk in greater details in the next slides. Autonomy is another thing where we can bring in a lot of positive changes. What is autonomy? So the autonomy, the meaning of autonomy is that the ability of the child to take decisions on his own, to be able to express what he thinks and not. So taking charge of the situation, the ability to take charge of the situations and carry forward is autonomy. Basically, it's the freedom given to the child to be on his own and complete a task. Okay, that is autonomy. Warmth is another very important thing. When you're dealing with negative behaviors as well, or even if when you're dealing with the children on day-to-day scenarios, there is a lot of requirement of positivity, warmth, and touch, and sense of acceptance. That even if these behaviors are not okay, that's all right. You are still accepted. Okay, so I'll talk in detail about how we can do that as well. A very important factor over here is communication. The moment I say communication, I'm hoping that in your mind there are these two figures popping up. There are two parties required to have a communication. Am I not right? So there has to be a lot of dialogue that has to happen between a parent and a child. So that is what I mean by communication, and a lot of give and take. Like, for example, if the parent is expecting certain things, then why? If the child is distressed, then a lot of explanation from the child's side to be heard by the parent is also equally important. So that all is the part of communication. Okay, so let's see some of the techniques to encourage autonomy. There are just a few things that I can tell you in such a short span of time, but still I'm going to try my best. So these are a few things that you can do right away. Okay, so offering choices is a beautiful, beautiful exercise. When I sit for assessment with my parents, there is this question in my assessment whether the child can make choices or not. And oftentimes, the response that I get is no, the child cannot make choices. Why? Because many times it happens that they are not being offered the choices. The term special needs kind of plays on our mind. It is automatically, it is very natural for us, to, kind of think in this way that if the child is with special needs, probably he cannot figure out things on his own, and I have to step in and do things for him. This doesn't happen very purposefully. It could be a very unconscious process as well. And on the other hand, it is also very natural for a parent to be very permissive, in sense that, for example, with a child with autism who has a lot of inwardness and a lot of efforts that need to be taken in terms of cracking that shell and reaching out to him, the parent would just let him be, and in terms of avoiding conflicts and all those things. So we tend to kind of oversee the needs as such. The special needs, they tend to be overseen and overattended at times, and very unknowingly. So it is very harmful when we step in every time. So we need to stop. That is what I'm saying, that don't just do everything for your child. Communication circle is something very beautiful that I teach my parents, wherein if the child wants something from you, for example, a child with autism, okay, and they have their own peculiar ways of communicating things to you. And being a parent, you know them, and you have been responding to all of them very, in a way that is very, very happy for the child to they get it. For example, the autistic child might just pull your hand and go to the cupboard and ask for cookies, and you know it why she's doing it. You're just handing over the dabba, the cookies to her. Okay, so there is no need for her to change the behavior, right? If you are doing everything for him or her, there is no need for the child to change the behavior to a socially acceptable behavior, because this is all right. This is serving the purpose. So this is where you stop responding in a natural way, in the normal way that you were doing. If you want to change this particular behavior, you stop responding. See what happens. Whether the child's look, when you stop responding, the child has to look at you, confused. Okay, what's happening? Okay, and that's your moment of eye contact. Okay, so the child provides you eye contact. You can ask a question, what do you want? Or if you know you want choices, you can take her hand and direct it to the cookie jar. That is something that is a directional pointing that you can teach from there. Or if she manages to point out to the cookie jar, offer her choices, whether you want almond cookie or whether you want, let's say, a salty cookie, something like that. Okay, or even in daily routine, for example, if you want to go out, don't just take out the clothes and put on the child. Put on the clothes for display and ask your child whether do you want to wear a red shirt today or a black shirt today. What do you want to wear? What do you think goes with it? Okay, so ask a lot of questions to the child, in the sense where child isn't, child feels the autonomy. Child feels precious, that okay, I am able to take, make choices on my own. Okay, I am given the opportunity to choose and pick things for me. So that is something very, very crucial as children with special, as parents, to remember for your child with special needs. Okay, there are other scenarios also where a child can feel in control. So it is equally important for the parent to be in control, so that there are set boundaries and limits and all those things. There are not much negativity around or negative behaviors happening around, and you, at the end of the day, you have to guide the child through the day to a particular goal that you have set for the child. But then what are the other areas where the child can be in control? Play is a wonderful, wonderful area where you can give a lot of autonomy and a lot of control to the child. Play is harmless. I mean, if the child is in control, there is not much of harm that could come out of it, right? So you imitate the child. Let the child take lead of the play. So you ask him to be a pretend role, and then you are the subordinates, and you kind of follow the child's lead. So be creative in terms of a lot of scenarios that you can develop in terms of where the child can be in charge. So there is something called as the child is in charge. In Marathi, there is something a similar game called as Shivaji Manto. So what happens is that that particular child is a king, and the king is saying something, and the whole audience is doing the same thing. So it's a very good exercise to build up the self-esteem of the child. Okay, so allow some free play as well, where the child can be on his own. There doesn't have to be every time some teaching through the play that has to go to the child. Um, there is another scenario, need for safety. It is a very, very important one. Now, over here, how you can incorporate positive parenting practices. Even typically developing children, and especially children with special needs, are thriving for safety. They are continuously scanning the environment for safety. So typically developing children or us, for example, it's very easy and taken for granted to be in an environment, make sense of the things that are happening around us and carry on with it. But with children with special needs, that's not the case. They have something called as faulty neuroception, because of which items or things that are there in the environment which might not be dangerous at all to us, but they might be a great source of danger for children with special needs. So for example, you'll see erratic behavior or very confused extreme behaviors coming out of children with special needs for apparently very harmless stimulus or sources. For example, mixer's noise or washing machine's noise. I've seen many children go on really, they would shut their ears off and cry excessively and go all over the place because of that. Because for them, it's a source of distress. So when you understand why your child is behaving in a particular way, you will find it a lot easier to deal with it in that way. Many times when the parent does not know what's happening with the child, a typical response might be to give a stress response. Why is he behaving like this? Oh, stop doing this. Why are you crying? Well, the child is not going to be able to express to you why he's crying. Okay, so so the key is to basically know and provide that kind of a safety to that child. And these safeties, provision of safety depends child to child very much. It's very unique. For children with autism, it is different. For ADHD, it is different. For children with epilepsy, it is different. So you have to be really aware of your child's needs and conditions and behaviors, why they're happening. Okay, if they are not met with, the children might go into internalizing and externalizing behaviors, like aggressive. They could become very aggressive, or they can shut themselves off. So if you see these things happening, that is your indicator to find out whether there is a need for safety and what I can do about it. Providing structure is basically providing safety. For children with autism, mainly, what happens is that they cannot make sense of the world in a typical way. So sudden changes and everything, they can't really, make meaning out of it. So a lot of visual structures to explain through how their day is going to be, how their activity is going to be. For example, if they are going to enter a new place, what they can have over there, what kind of a social scenario will be there, and how they can go through with it is pretty much handled by a social story. I'll give you an example of it later on. Before that, I would like to discuss warmth.
Hi,
Okay.
Tejashree. Just would like to interrupt. We have been receiving a lot of questions, and I would, like to begin taking questions in another 10 minutes. So just wanted to
Sure.
inform you that.
Sure. All right. So warmth is another area where we can bring in a lot of positivity in terms of our parenting practices. So there is something called as a theory of attachment, wherein John Bowlby actually studied a lot of infants of chimps and their mothers and in various experimental scenarios. And the outcomes that he derived from those experiments were incredible. And their accuracy is also very incredible. So what came out of their experiments was that a lot of physical touch, warmth was required, was required for the infant to develop trustful relations, all right, and to be successful in terms of when the child is growing up. So it's very, very important if you want to practice positive parenting. Have some time wherein, let's say, story time or something, wherein you cuddle in. A lot of touch is there, a lot of closeness is there, a warmth is there, exchange of expressions is there. So that's something which can be achieved in a, let's say, quality playtime, or this is where also there is another opportunity where if the child is distressed, you can, if you approach with warmth, the child gains a lot of positive emotional regulation skills. And in opposition to that, if you are very cold to the child or very harsh, just stop crying, why are you crying, you're a big boy, boys don't cry, or girls don't cry, whatever it is, they're going to develop a lot of negative coping skills about being aware of their own emotionality or handling their own stress, emotional stress and everything. So teaching empathy, teaching emotional regulation is very, very important. Okay, so yeah, so let me go to the visuals as I spoke about. So these are the visuals I talked about. So this explains a lot about how a child's day is going to go in terms of when he enters the school till he goes out of the school. So the child is very secure, okay, very clear about what is going to happen. There are no uncertainties, there is nothing new happening. So the child is very, very much in control of what is going to happen, sure about what is going to happen. A lot of time, children with autism, they have problems receiving in terms of auditory processing. So visuals kind of work best with them, and they reduce negative behaviors a lot. So incorporate, as parents, there I have seen there is a reluctance in terms of incorporating visuals into their daily routine. So I would really, really recommend the parents to incorporate all these visual structures and visual schedules so that you'll see the positivity happening in their children, in your children. So social stories, as I said, are the great example wherein if there is a social scenario which is happening wrong, the child is giving negative behaviors. So the social story explains that scenario, tells him where he is going wrong via pictures and a first person language preferred. And then it concludes with the replacement of the appropriate behavior and a kind of reward that he can receive after that. So you can see examples over there. There are tons of resources available on the internet, on social stories, how to create them, how to use them, and everything. Here is one I created myself for a child who had proximity issues. So children with autism often have proximity issues wherein they can't handle people very much close in their proximity. And that kind of sets an alarm in them, and they kind of turn out to be aggressive towards them at times. So this child used to do the same thing. So whenever he used to go out in the park, any person passing by, he would be very aggressive or start hitting that person. So this is a social story that I made wherein a lot of explanation in terms of what is happening inside the park, with a lot of pictures and visuals and the child's picture. So the scenario, social scenario was explained, that why people come to the park, what all is happening, okay, and when they come close, what do I do and why it is not right, okay. It is okay, it is very much essential for to tell the children that you are not supposed to do something, but it is equally important to tell them then what you are supposed to do in exchange to that not supposed to do. So the social stories next part is actually the best part, where there are a lot of options that are provided in the social story in terms of what they can do in such a scenario and what they can get after they do the positive behavior. So yeah, these are some of the techniques and everything. So before we go to the questions, I had some really exciting techniques and everything, but because of short of time, I've cut it down to only one. So let's do this exercise together, okay? This is a very effective technique called reframing. And well, the exercise, the nature of the exercise is that there are these sentences that you can see on the screen. So there are these 5 sentences, and I want all of you to put in chat box your responses in terms of you have to turn these statements into affirmative. Okay, all of these are starting with no and don't, but you have to turn them into positive ones. So there is an example that I've given. So for example, if I want to tell my son, don't run, I might, instead of saying that, I might say, let's use our walking feet, all right? So I would like you to take in the first statement, okay? Don't hit or no hitting. And you can write your responses in the chat box, okay? And I would like to see what responses we are getting. and my chat box is open and I'm eager to see. Okay, stop hitting. No, no. Okay, good hands. Okay, hitting hurts. All right, hitting is bad. Shake hands. Okay, all right. Let's clap hands. Okay, okay, all right. Okay. Wow, so many responses, and I'm very, very happy that the participants are really coming up with a lot of responses. All right, be loving, be gentle. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. No, you cannot watch more TV. Right, I said, yeah. What will you do for this one? Let's watch it for another 5 minutes. All right. Okay, let's play. Okay. All right. Mama is watching it right now. Okay, let's do something else. Okay, TV is tired. All right. Great, great. All right. Now let's take the next one. Okay, what does it say? It says, "Don't make a mess," or let's say, what a mess you've made. What will you tell? Let's clean up. Good, good. Let's clean it together. Excellent, excellent. Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Now let's go to the next one. Don't cry. Laugh, okay. Just smile. Give me a hug. All right. You can talk. Very good. All right. Let's laugh together. Okay. Okay. Tickle the child. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Now let's go to the last one. Okay. Bad boy or a bad girl. Okay. Be a super girl. Okay. Good boy. Okay. Because the child has done something, this is the response that is coming, but you want to still tell, and but you are not supposed to use these words. Oh, okay. All right. Amazing, amazing responses. All right. So, Ati, do I have a time to go over the some of the examples in terms of what I would say if I have to say something?
Sure. Let's take 5 more minutes.
All right. So don't hit or no hitting. For that, I would use, let's say, quiet hands or hands in the pocket. Or as a lot of parents have said, diverting the children into another activity of, let's say, high-fiving or doing something else. So that can be a good way to say in terms of no hitting, hands in the pocket or quiet hands, or all those things are there. These are just a few examples. No, you cannot watch more TV. For that, an affirmative could be like, the TV time is over. Can you hand over the remote, please? All right. Or you can tell the children before, 5 minutes before only, that it's 5 minutes left, and you know that you have to turn the TV off after 5 minutes. And before they know, because they know it beforehand only, that what consequences they will follow if they don't switch off the TV. It is expected out of the children that they are going to give the TV back to you. And for example, now over here, if the children are in a very good mood and you are outside, authoritative parents could be a little more lenient and give out 5 more minutes, but not every time. Okay, it's a tricky thing, but then it's also a very good thing to practice. Okay, don't make a mess, or what a mess you've made. As many of the participants have responded, I'm very happy with it. They have said, let's clean it up together. That's the best thing that works with my son as well. So when he was very tiny, since he was very, very tiny, I would do this. Whenever we used to play together, we used to clean it up together, and I was to give a clear verbal instruction and would do it with him, saying that now it's cleanup time. Let's clean up. And today also he follows the same habit. And that kind of helps me. So let's clean up together is a very, very positive alternative instead of what a mess you've made, or clean it up, right? Don't cry. Don't cry is something where the situation is that when your child is crying, that means he or she is in a distress. And it is a very bad response to receive as a child from a parent to whom the child is looking up to receive comfort. So when you are saying don't cry, you're already shutting the door. So the ideal response over here will be to, first of all, to go down to the child's level. Maybe you bend in a lot, bend in a bit in the knee and go down to the eye level of the child. Probably give a hug or ask what's happening. Provide a lot of warmth, touch maybe. Ask him what is troubling and what happened. Try to hear it out and provide solutions based on a logical explanation. Okay, and you can give options to the child. Okay, the child explains blah 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 blah, that person hit me or something like that. Then your response as a parent could be, you can give logical explanations or options in terms of what the child can do. Now over here you cannot be like, go back and hit the child. No. So you have to be also very empathetic in terms of providing, and very logical in terms of providing the explanations to the child and options, then clear options which she can opt, do this or do that, you can do this, you can do that. Okay, that will help a child a lot. Bad boy or bad girl, all right? So clearly the child has done something which is not right, and you want to respond in a way like this, but you are not going to. And the alternative explanation, alternative expression would be wherein I would say that, okay, whatever the child has done, probably I can reframe it in a different way, saying that this is not done. Okay, so now what's happened is that because so and so has happened, now this is something that is going to happen. Okay, and I think this is not the right way. I think this is not good. So what do you think we can do about it? Okay, something like that, a response, kind of a response that I would give. Okay, so it was a very, very good exercise to do with you all together. And yeah, I think that's the end of it, or there is one more, I guess. Yeah. So to conclude, I would say just in 1 minute that I know, and it is clearly stated that every parent loves their child. No parent would deliberately do any harm. But at the end of the day, it is the style of response that you choose to give to your child that decides what your child is going to take it as, or what the child's psyche is going to shape towards: success, confidence, self-efficacy, or being ashamed, being very less confident and timid and shy. Okay, so stress, lack of knowledge or lack of awareness of the condition, lack of effective techniques on part of the parent to manage the condition specific behaviors can lead to a lot of negative parenting responses, such as yelling or blaming the child, criticizing the child, making a use of a lot of negative sentences to the child, and that is very harming. There is no set formula to bring up the child in the best way, but authoritative style is recommended to be the best to practice, so we can practice it more. And yes, you can change your parenting style. So till now, for example, you have felt that, okay, I have been behaving in this way. Probably you can make a change, starting one thing a day. You can begin with just, let's say, offering choices. And but there has to be a beginning somewhere, and you can adapt positive parenting practices. Definitely be creative in terms of giving warmth and control and autonomy to your child, and you'll see a wonderful thing happening. And if there is a child with special needs, it is definitely a different scenario than the typically developing children, and a lot of learning has to happen from the side of parents as well. So when you have a child with special needs in the family, bringing up a child with special needs is basically growing up together. So parents with special needs children have to put in a lot of conscious effort in terms of adapting positive parenting practices. And